Good evening and welcome to the special meeting of the Gorham Town Council. It's May 13th. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Phillips. Councillor Sims.
Present.
Councillor Wildacross. Here. Councillor Pratt.
Present.
Councillor Gagnon.
Present.
Councillor Lavoie. Present.
Present.
Item 2024-15-16, action to consider an extension of White Birch Lane, Councillor Phillips sponsored. Proposed order 24-75, order that the Town Council provide notice of its intentions to lay out an extension of the town way known as White Birch Lane, to set a meeting to be held for this purpose after final designs have been submitted to the town, and to order the town clerk to post a notice of this meeting signed by the municipal officers at least 7 days in advance in 2 public places in the town and in the vicinity of White Birch Lane as required under 23 MRSA 3022.
All right, before I ask for a motion and a second, I just want to explain to the public that we are going to, after the motion and second, if there is one, we'll do an overview of this project and this item. Then we'll do council discussion, and then after that, we will do public comment, and then resume council discussion if there's any more. So I just wanted to remind people that we're going to do this in kind of a backwards way tonight, and a reminder that when we do public comment, that this is about White Birch Lane and not the subdivision or the contract zone. So is there a motion on the item? Moved by Councillor Lavoie. Is there a second? Second by Councillor Siegel. All right, I'll turn it over to the town manager and then.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll give a high-level overview, and then Tom Poirier, our Community Development Director, can fill in any of the blanks. We're messed up here. Swapped. So we're here this evening, as the chair mentioned, for the council to weigh in on whether or not to move forward a process to extend White Birch Lane across municipal property to connect to the Robie Street subdivision. The planning board has recommended another point of connection for that subdivision as it progresses through the planning and approvals phases. And essentially, after talking to our legal counsel, this process, if the council approves the item tonight, it would move forward. Ideally, the applicant would work with municipal staff, the planning board as necessary, finalize what that design would look like, whether it's pedestrian improvements, the final layout of the road. There would be a formal public hearing, and then that would be brought back to the council for a formal vote. The one thing I would emphasize tonight, and we're here to answer any questions at the staff level, is if you do not want to move the process forward, this may be the time to stop it. Because after this point, the developer, municipal staff, there'll be a lot of parties investing a lot of time, energy, and funds in that process and the design of it. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and Tom can fill in anything that I may have just missed in that high-level overview. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, what I would just say is, so Owens McCullough in the packet the council received is kind of a plan set of a White Birch Lane connector based on preliminary information. Should the council move forward, he would finalize that design. There's some just verification of right-of-way, that kind of information. They are looking to do a sidewalk connection all the way to New Portland Road as part of the White Birch Connector Road, which would go back into a potential subdivision. And I think that's a good starting point, and I'd answer any questions you have.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Wildacross.
Yes, I have a question. What happens if we don't approve White Birch Lane? I know we're here tonight to either do that or not do that, and I'm curious about, does that just kill the whole project?
No, so what I would say is the planning board, I think, recommended to look for the additional connection for a couple reasons. One is the residential connection of making dead-end roads connect as a grid-style development for the village, but also it was to look at alleviating construction traffic through the neighborhood. So if White Birch Lane is not proposed to be connected both is a concern regarding residential traffic on dead-end roads, but the other point is construction vehicle traffic will then be on the other roads that are in the development. So Roby, Bramblewood, Ridgeway would handle the construction and residential traffic within the development. But
Madam Chair, I live on Bramblewood, and I don't know whether the other councilors feel I ought to be recusing myself from this conversation. I believe I can be unbiased, but I thought I should throw that out so that the whole world knows.
We want to take a vote on whether we believe that Councillor Wilder Cross can stay in voting? Does anyone want to make a motion?
I just comment that I think her input is critical since she lives on one of the roads that are impacted.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like she can be unbiased.
Okay,
Same.
continue.
Thank you.
And then the other question you had, would it stop the development? Remember, what's currently before the planning board is 40 or 50 lots, residential single-family houses on 2 or 3 roads. Is there any concern regarding whether those roads would be at a capacity that there's a safety issue to not, so the planning board couldn't approve it? I'm not aware of one. I mean, if something came up that it was, we haven't seen it yet, and it's gone from preliminary to final. So I don't foresee there being anything to stop it with 3 points of connection.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Sims.
Yeah, one other clarifying point. The town manager mentioned this would be if we were to want to, if we were not wanting this development to go forward, this would be the time to say no to
This road connection.
this road connection. Yeah. This road connection. Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying what you meant by it. Thank you. Okay.
Councillor Gagnon.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So this road connection, they could feed off it for any other phases that would be present, right? Through you to Tom.
Oh,
Phase 2, 3.
would they have access to it? Yes.
Yep. So as the design is for phase 2 and 3, the dogleg that presents itself from New Portland Road to South Street, which hasn't been abated, would be present and there, but nothing stopping it from changing, potentially.
There could be the potential if you're adding traffic where it becomes.
Could is not a answer.
There's a possibility that it could be redesigned.
So it's not a certainty. Okay. That's what I'm looking for here is if we're looking at gifting, and that's what we're doing because we're getting no monetary value for land access here, a road and the required, what would have been a required sidewalks is not a gift to the town, nor compensation. We've had people discuss highways and the compensation highways are providing people for passing through, right? They're not getting the land for free. Why should the townspeople provide access and not be compensated? So as it's presented currently, I see no benefit to the town or its people to have access to a non-conforming road structure that's currently not there. I would go further to say that the deforestation along that route would open up a ball field to its neighbors, which is a Vesta housing unit. And so, as you know, good fences make good neighbors, and you're taking a fence away from a very loud ball field during times. So, for me, Madam Chair, I look at this and I say it may be something that could have possibly been done, but I don't see as it currently stands a good benefit either to the taxpayers or to the people that live on any of these roads by allowing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lilloye.
Just, who's going to pay to build the road?
The developer.
Okay. Yeah. That adds value because they're going to incur the cost to put in a road, otherwise the town would have to. I've walked the corridor, I followed the stakes. It's, that whole section's already been forested. It's thin to begin with. There's not much of a buffer there, but I don't know. To me, I think this needs to happen.
Counselor Sims?
Yeah, I'd like to have further discussion about what requirements we can add if we were to grant this access. So, for example, a number of residents have raised very valid concerns about cars traveling through at fast speeds. So the way these roads are on the diagram, they just look like drag strips. They're just straight roads. If it's a straight road, it doesn't really matter what speed limit signs you put on the side of it. People will go fast. So there are things that can be done to make a road slower. Another concern that's been raised is the parking lot area for the T-ball fields, needing to keep that completely separate from the road. So those are examples of a couple things that we could conceivably require if we were to say yes. And I would very much want to hear any other suggestions from other counselors as to requirements they think would be appropriate to find, a way for this to go forward in a way that is addressing the concerns, the valid concerns of the nearby residents. So what's the process look like for doing that? Do we have to propose like specific conditions right now before we take a vote?
No, I think what's going to happen is that if we want to go forward with this, we're telling town staff to go ahead. We can make those suggestions now. We can talk about things like that, but I think it's ultimately going to come back to us. And if we can make recommendations,
Yeah.
I guess, to Tom.
Well, I think the one, the terminology of suggestions or recommendations versus conditions that are required. I think those are a couple of the, because I think,
Yep.
that's one of the concerns. And I know a lot of folks have been trying to provide their input along the way, and to some extent they feel that input's not being integrated. Of course, they're not going to be able to do everything that's being asked of them, but if we can identify the most critical things, that seems like a conversation worth having.
So I guess to the town manager, do you want that information tonight, or do you want that at the next meeting? Are you looking just for?
Well, I'm gonna kick this to Tom because Tom's, expertise is the planning side.
Yeah, so a couple of things. So as part of the review by the planning board, speed and traffic is absolutely a concern. The planning board's heard it multiple times. They narrowed actually that standard that's being proposed is narrower than that urban access standard to keep speeds lower. Now, is there ability to put other things in the road to slow traffic? Possibly. I think with the stop signs and other things, I think the planning board has come to identify that, and the town engineer and the public works director have all identified those as being alleviating the speed concern. Now, regarding the speed over on that piece over there, White Birch Lane is proposed to get a sidewalk. Hopefully by having that sidewalk will feel tighter and slow traffic. I think that will be a deterrent to speed. Currently, there's no sidewalk on White Birch Lane. The public works recently put flashers, I believe, right at the end of White Birch Lane to help facilitate pedestrians crossing. So,
And you're right now you're talking about the spot adjacent to the parking lot for the T-ball field?
yeah, so if you look in the plans, they're proposing a basically curb cut for the parking lot, so more formalizing that. I guess are you looking for like a fence or something like it?
It could be like a wall of trees or bushes. I mean, I think a more significant barrier of some kind would definitely be appreciated by the parents of the kids that play T-ball.
I think, as we go through the public comment process, anything that the council, if they move this forward for actually getting a design for a road, if you want to see something, that would help staff as we move forward with the next phase.
Madam Chair, I have one other question. I wondered if the developer had absolutely discounted any other access off of New Portland Road. Did they go to all of the possibilities for that? Because at the meetings that I've been to, there were other options brought up, and it just felt like it fell on deaf ears.
The developers here, I think that's a question for them.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the council. My name is Vincent Maeda, and I'm the principal at KV Enterprises, the developer here. About 3 years ago, we met with the Roby family to purchase this piece of property, and at that time, the Roby family, Bruce Roby specifically, met with the director of the Presumpscot River Land Trust. He walked the parcel with her several times, and they devised a line that they required him to hold in order for them to accept the conservation piece that we're showing on our drawings. Mr. Roby requested in his purchase and sale agreement that we would acknowledge that line that he and the director of the Presumpscot River Land Trust had developed over several meetings and quite a lot of time. So fast forward, into the project 2.5 years ago, we met with the planning staff. We put the property into contract. We met with planning staff. They were fantastic. They came up with some terrific ideas about spreading the traffic out as much as we possibly can for a project in this type of a zone. Is going to be relatively high density. They wanted to spread the traffic. So with staff's comments, we went around and negotiated with other neighbors to create pathways to get to White Birch. So as part of the sale, we negotiated the sale, then we negotiated this access road from Sue Roby's property to White Birch. That's a separate parcel. The reason I'm telling you all this is because there's extensive negotiations that we weren't able to change. They became part of our project. We planned on putting a road through Susan's land to get to White Birch, provided that the town could someday, we'd come to the town council someday when we needed to have that road and request permission to build that road. Since the road costs were a little excess of $500,000 to build White Birch Lane, we wished to do it in phase 2. So we didn't burden the council with this in phase 1. We're only doing 45 single-family lots. We have 4 current access egress points for the subdivision. We don't need to have more than that. So we were hoping to build the first phase without White Birch. We went to the city, to Gorham's planning board meeting, and we received preliminary approval, but the board asked us if we would mind doing that access road as part of phase 1 to try to, same thing the staff said, spread out the traffic for the construction traffic. Completely made sense to us. We totally could see that the neighbors wanted it, we wanted it, the staff wanted it, so we said, it's really gonna make phase 1 difficult for us with a $500,000 road that, doesn't really provide us any income, but we agreed to do that, provided that the council would be gracious enough to allow it to occur. So we moved forward with this request to the council after preliminary approval on phase 1, and we've agreed to build this road to White Birch as part of phase 1, if the council thinks it's appropriate. If they don't think it's appropriate, that, it would be okay with me, because it's $500,000 less development in the first phase, which is always the difficult phase, but we're certainly willing to do whatever the wishes of the council. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
I do. When
Sure.
you said there would be 4 access roads, even if you don't use White Birch, what are they?
There's a road coming in from 114 on Roby. The other road comes in from the school on Roby. That's 2 different exit points from our project. And then Bramblewood and that other narrow street that's between Bramblewood and Roby.
Ridgeway?
Yes, it is. We're putting a road in there as well.
Originally, I think you thought Ridgeway might be a one-way in.
Today, that's whatever the that road's going to be whatever the town determines it would be, right? That we don't make those decisions, ma'am. Staff does. The Public Works Department and the Police Department and those other departments will determine whether it's a one-way or not. But we're okay with any of, there's been some suggestions by some of staff, some of the Gorham staff, that it may be appropriate to be a one-way, and we're certainly fine with that if that ends up being.
That wouldn't really be a proper access for you to be using if it's only one way, though. I don't think I'd be
So we don't
excited
need,
about using that one.
yeah, no, it's fair enough, but we don't need that road at all to be built to meet the traffic requirements for a 45 lot subdivision. But the road's going to be built as part of phase one. We've already proposed that on the drawings that have been preliminarily approved. So we're hopeful to build that. If the town wishes it to be one way or two way, we still don't know how that's going to end up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Counselor Sims, go ahead.
Just a clarifying question. Thank you for providing answers. You mentioned, so if the town council were not to grant access to White Birch Lane, you would no longer build the road in your current plans for phase one, and this would save you $500,000 on estimate. So it would actually improve your bottom line. It would improve the economics of your plans for phase one if we did not grant you access to White Birch Lane.
For phase one, that's correct. We think it's good planning, and we know the staff was very adamant that we get as many ways as possible. We fully expect to build a second means of egress. Hopefully this council or a future council may approve it in another phase. Who knows? But phase one doesn't require it. It's so small. But certainly we hope to have the road built for the entire project. We see it as one project. I'm sure you do too. And we'd like to have that road built. We just wish we could do it in phase two, but we're happy to do it in phase one if that's what the board wishes, the council wishes. You could certainly approve it and say, no, you're not going to don't build it till phase 2 or 3. We would live with that too, right? But it seems like most of the citizens in that area really would appreciate having the construction traffic mostly just spread out a little bit more. And that's what we were hearing. And they're really good comments. And I think it should be built, quite frankly, I think it should be built in phase one.
Thank you.
Counselor Siegel, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to ask this of the developer here. Have you talked to the owners of Topin Drive at all about connecting it to that instead of White Birch Lane?
We can't get to that through the conservation land. That's what I was trying to, yeah. The conservation piece was developed by the seller with Presumpscot River Land Trust, and we're not allowed to build a road through the Presumpscot. That would violate our purchase and sale agreement, and that would also create a problem for the seller with their agreement with the land trust.
Understood. Okay. And now I have a few questions here that are a bit miscellaneous here. We know that lot was recently, in the past few years or so, they took it all for lumber. Do we know where what pathway they took to take all of the trees out?
I think it was Roby. I think it was Roby.
It was out Roby? Okay. Okay. And then in terms of construction traffic, is your intention to evenly split construction vehicles among all of the entry points? Or is your expectation to just do White Birch Lane? What are your plans for that?
Our expectations are, if we build White Birch Lane, that the vast majority of any heavy construction equipment would be accessed through that way. I mean, undoubtedly, there'll be enough carpenters and electricians and so forth randomly, adding traffic to those other local roads to burden them plenty, unfortunately. But we want to try to bring as much of the heavy stuff in through White Birch that's why what we're thinking about.
Got it. And would you be open to having that as part of the agreement, that you would
Yeah.
disperse the construction traffic evenly?
No, that's a great question, Simon. I think the difficult part of it is there could be, over a period of time, hundreds of different trucks that come, like lumber trucks or a cement truck or something with different drivers, and they're not going to know we're going to keep focused on trying to keep them, but I'd hate to have it limited. I would really appreciate it if, somebody didn't accidentally go down a road to get to us and then get, summoned or something for making a mistake. I mean, we'll put all our traffic that we can control through White Birch, but you're bound to get a random sheetrock delivery or somebody coming the wrong way or something one time until someone catches them and tells them not to do that again, and then we'll revert them to White Birch. But I think it'd be difficult to control over the next, 10 years of construction, every single truck of certain size to go and every road, I think it would be much more welcoming to come in White Birch. If I'm a truck driver, quite frankly, I'd rather go in that way. It'd be easier for me once I know it's there, but some of the people may not know it immediately and go in Roby by mistake until they found out, hey, there's a better way. And
I just don't want to put this all on White Birch Lane. That's
I
my
get it,
concern.
no, but
Yeah.
that's just the heavy trucks, right? There's a lot more small trucks that everybody knows come, the carpenters, the electricians, the plumbers, and so
Yeah.
forth over time, So
Understood.
it does spread it out quite a bit.
And through Chair too, I think it might be a Tom or a town manager question. The turning radius at New Portland Road to White Birch, can that suit these large construction vehicles we're talking about?
I don't know 100% right off the top of my head, but has White Birch Lane been functioning as a road that's had equipment before? Yes.
Okay.
Can they navigate construction vehicles in and out of White Birch Lane? My guess is yes. Ideally, I guess when you get to certain numbers of volume of trips on a road, then you go to a different standard, then we would look at that as part of that. So that's where I got to Councillor Gagnon's question a little bit. Can we look at that in the future? Yes. As this development moves forward, if a traffic movement permit is required, there are off-sites that we can look at, and then turning radiuses and volumes, that all gets played out. So it's hard to say right now whether White Birch Lane, we'd be doing anything at the intersection of New Portland Road, possibly in the future.
Okay. To the other councilors here, this is only connected onto 114. If we don't have this White Birch Lane connection, my concern is actually any of those people trying to go towards Westbrook would then have to go down 114 and hit 114 and 25 to get out. And this gives a way that they can, by going out New Portland Road, will not add more traffic in our already most trafficked area. I share Councillor Sims' concerns of this just straightaway here it is a drag strip. Like this will be a cut through if built this way. And so if we do require, if we do end up going for White Birch Lane, I would love to see a slight design change here, so this is not just an easy cut through, so that there are turns. That is point one. And then the other point is for phase one, I know you are doing sidewalk on Roby Street. Which leg of Roby Street?
The leg that goes towards the school.
Got it. Okay. I would also like to see if we sidewalk the other side of Roby Street, the other leg, that allows somebody to walk, say, all the way to the library, which means all the way to the municipal center and all the way to the high school. They're walking without having to touch Main Street. A much more enjoyable walking experience for people, for everyone that lives in this area.
Thank you. Counselor Pratt?
So I'm not sure which way I want to go on this yet, so bear with me here. But question for town staff. This road is going to be beat to an absolute pulp when we're done with all the construction traffic. What's the town standards on rebuilding roads after said construction phase? I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but for the public.
So typically, if a truck or a road is going to handle a significant number of truck trips as part of the development, Public Works will require that road to be videoed, the whole length, and walked with the developer and Public Works staff to see the condition of the road. Then once the road is construction, the work is done, then if there is significant damage to that road, then it would need to be overlaid or some kind of improvement as identified by Public Works. I think this case for White Birch Lane is possibly going to see significant drainage and sidewalk improvements should the connection go forward. I see a lot of White Birch Lane needing to be kind of rebuilt anyway, just because of the improvements being associated with the road. So.
Okay. So with that tied in, where this curb cut goes into the parking lot, if this is going to be being paved at the same time, I would like the consideration of having that parking lot paved at the same time as part of the condition. If, I'm not saying we're not conditioning anything tonight, I get that, but when it goes to the planning board and the planning board's looking at it, I would like to see that as a possible condition of this.
I think that's something the council would want to identify as part of the road part. Yeah. So I just want to make sure I understand. You're asking the developer to pave the parking lot for the ball field as part of the road construction, as part of this project.
All the paving is occurring, correct?
As well.
Could I, one question?
Yep,
About
go ahead.
That, to Councilor Pratt's point there, that would there be any benefit to considering like a crushed rock lot just for like the impervious surface? I know there's the little brook right there as well. I don't know if there's any sort of.
I don't think that really impacts anything.
Okay, cool. Yep.
It's a gravel pad now.
Yeah.
I mean, Public Works is here. They could answer it better than I could, but I'm getting a head shake. No, it doesn't really impact anything. So.
All right, so I think after Councilor Gagnon speaks, I think I'm going to open it up to the public, and then we can have more discussion. So go ahead, Councilor Gagnon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my understanding is this came forward with a contract zone. Am I to believe that the contract zone is gone in the request from this builder?
No, that would be coming forward at a future council.
So why isn't this part of the contract zone discussion with the requirements? Why are we trying to piecemeal it beforehand? Because all the things that the councilors have indicated they wanted would be in the contract zone. So why aren't we working the contract zone to get this as part of it?
Because whether the first phase of the development doesn't require the contract zone, so whether the road.
I'm aware of
forward,
that. I'm asking why are we not doing all of it together?
If the council wants to move it that way, you could send it.
Well, that would be the correct way of doing it so that you know what you're getting, right? If you want things to be done with the parking lot and the road and everything else, you'd have it fully flushed out in the contract zone. This isn't our first contract zone. So I guess I see the merits of Councilor Pratt asking for paving in the parking lot. Where is the negotiation in the contract zone to make sure that it's earmarked and a requirement to be finished and a time frame for it to be finished in, not 20 years when the entirety of the project is done, right? So that's where I think we need to be, is having this as part of the contract zone work and the discussion. Because it can't be that we're coming and having a open meeting asking for things and expecting them to be done or done correctly. This is a legal and binding thing that we need to have done. So I just remind the council that if that is coming forward, why are we doing this part first? Why are we rushing? Thank you.
Thank you. I would disagree that I think the contract zone is something separate, because Like I stated before, we're actually just talking about White Birch Lane, but as Thomas said, Phase 1 is going forward, so if this is to be part of Phase 1, needs to be talked about now. So I think what I'm going to do is open it up for public comment. If anyone wants to speak about this item, please come up. We'll do about 3 minutes or so. Just let us know who you are.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Perkins. I live on Bridle Path Way, and I've given you a copy of what I'm about to say for my notes. So I'm here on behalf of the school committee as the chair of that committee, and we wanted to share a couple of comments regarding the proposed plan for White Birch Lane. An additional access road is already needed at Village Elementary School for safety and traffic congestion purposes. In the 10-year capital plan, an access road is included from the White Birch Lane area, followed by construction of a road that skirts the property line of Village Elementary School out to Roby Street. The proposed development would further increase foot, bike, and vehicle traffic in this area. A draft bond referendum request that will be considered by the Town Council in the coming months includes $2.9 million for a parking lot expansion, parking overlay, and construction of an access road at Village School. The schools committee suggests that the developer be asked to cover some or all of these expenses to ensure ongoing safety for the public. In addition, we did also just want to point out that the proposed connector plan and the existing 10-year capital plan for Village Elementary School don't currently align, as the proposed connector road includes an area the school department had originally designated for a potential stormwater retention pond. We're open to alternate stormwater retention areas, but we wanted to make sure that the Town Council was aware of this as decisions are made. For further reference, we've attached maps that show the improvements and the location of the proposed retention pond, which is in green. As always, we're happy to provide additional information as needed, and we thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks.
Oh, well, that puts a wrench in it.
My name is Susan Roby, and I live at 34 Roby Street. And I'm not going to read what I wrote, but I was going to give you a little more background. Frederick Roby grew up on this land, and he loved it. And one of his desires was that the school kids of the village school could get to the Indian Camp Brook, or the Indian camp, on the Indian Camp Brook. And for that reason, that the demarcation that Mr. Maeda spoke about, they negotiated with the land trust. And Bruce Roby asked us to set aside some of our land so that a trail could go from the village school to that triangular 150-foot piece, which we agreed to do. So one of the benefits of having this road from White Birch Lane will make it a whole lot easier for people to get to the conservation land. If I believe the Land Trust still wants to do that, is to put a trail directly to that cut. And that's one thing I wanted to say. And the other thing I wanted to say was about the parking lot. I can remember vividly standing on the boundary of the school property and the DEP saying, you cannot put another parking lot here because the post office has taken all the impervious surface that the railroad brook can take. So the idea of using crushed rock may be the only thing you can do. The DEP is going to weigh in on that brook. They always do. Because it's a native trout brook. So I can still remember everybody's mouth falling open at that. They were standing right in the middle of one of our fields and said, you can't do that. So that's something to think about. Maybe they don't have the same regulations. It was a little while ago. But let's see. I think that everything I had to say has been covered. I think that that this road that they build, that the answer to the shortcutting through it is actually in the design of the development, not the road. It really makes no sense to put corners in a road that's traversing a forest, and our land is tree growth. All you do is cut down more trees. But entering the development, it would be certainly easy to make a couple T intersections, which would really slow it down. So I have been frustrated because I have commented repeatedly in the meetings about slowing the traffic down by design. So I don't know if this is the time to talk about that, but that's all I have to say. You've all seen what I had to write. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We did receive your comments. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dave Walsh, 85 Falcon Crest Drive. And I'm also, as many of you know, a member of the Planning Board, but I'm here to speak and share some of my own thoughts with you on this. We spent a lot of time in Planning Board reviewing this project, both the as a subdivision and with regard to the contract zone, which I do believe, my own personal belief is that it should all be packaged up in the contract zone. That is the right place for it, including white birch, including ideas like the paving the parking lot is a good one. But what we've heard of the Planning Board primarily is one of the major issues is access. And as you know, I think you received a letter from the Planning Board that recommended that white birch be part of Phase 1. My personal belief is that absolutely should happen, but also it is the lesser of the evils. There's no good answer here. I mean, I've heard a lot of feedback from a lot of folks in this room, and that they just don't want construction traffic. I'm sure the people on White Birch Lane don't want the construction traffic. Living on Falcon Crest since I moved to Gorham, I've been living in a construction zone, so I know what that is like. But one thing, and I appreciate the feedback, the background from Susan Roby, is if you look at this piece of land, is there another way? If you look at it and go, okay, how can we make this area accessible? Because if you're going to go through and go in with the entire project, with the multifamily down the road, multi-phases of this project, White Birch Lane isn't even good to access. Certainly Roby, certainly Ridgeway is terrible, and the folks in Bramblewood don't want it. But is there room, is there a time that we should go back, somebody should go back and talk to the folks, the Roby family, talk to the land trust and say, is there a way to knock in an access road? Because they not only would open up this area, which would be, if you get out to all of the units of the multifamily, will be better for, but it also would allow land to be accessible further down towards Day Road. So that's kind of a big picture look, kind of go back and blow the whole thing up and say, is there another way? But I've often thought, and I realize the developers were kind of boxed out of that discussion, but is there room to revisit that? So I'll throw that out there. As for the subdivision, these gentlemen have heard me say, I think the layout is kind of cookie cutter, non-imaginative. I believe I'd like to see something with a little more personality to it, maybe spread out the lots a little bit, and this would allow for some better traffic calming options. There is a lot of land here, and the way they've boxed the streets in the big picture is up in one corner, and that's so they can preserve more of it. But even if you take the I think it's 51 acres that's going to be set aside for the land trust, there's still about 20 acres there that is around the subdivision that could be, if they were spread the streets out a little bit, might provide some better traffic calming options. So just my thoughts on that.
Sorry, if you could finish up. We
No
have other
problem.
people who want to talk, but.
Yeah, no, understood.
Yep.
No, I was actually just coming to that. That was my last point. So
Thank
I do
you.
thank you for your time and
Thank you.
interesting project.
Hi, my name is Ruth Kelly. I live on the corner of New Portland Road and White Birch Lane, and I know this is supposed to be just about the extension of White Birch Lane
a road extension, but I don't think it'd be separated from the Roby Street subdivision, because that's the main reason for it, I think. And I am torn by this because I really love the conservation idea of the kids going down to the Indian Brook area, but at the same time, it's just not a good place for this access road to White Birch Lane. It's just not a good place. First of all, I know it's had lots of big trucks go on it before, because that's where they throw the snow when we used to have snow in the winter. Big, huge piles of it, and we would have trucks going by there all the time, but not big logging trucks, with long trucks that have a wider turning radius. It's going to inevitably get into line of traffic. It's just, and the roads, which are supposed to be perpendicular for turning purposes, it's not perpendicular there. And as far as I really wonder, were the logs really taken away from Roby Street? Because there's no access to that area from Roby Street. So I kind of question whether the logging trucks that took the initial logs away went out on Roby Street, because I really question that, because there's no road that goes out there. There's no logging road that I know of that goes that way. But if it is, it is. But New Portland Road, not New Portland Road, but White Birch Lane, all of the construction traffic, phase 1 is going to be on that road. That's not spreading out the bulk of the traffic. It's specifically going to be on White Birch Lane. And that area is highly trafficked. There's a lot of people going up and down that road from the Avesta housing. I see people with their wheelchairs going to the store. A lot of kids, a lot of bicyclists, the runners run from the school. I just don't see it. First of all, it's in a bad place traffic-wise, and second of all, it's not being spread out all throughout. It's just on White Birch Lane for the first phase, which it wasn't originally. And I wish there's some way we could be, like Mr. Walsh said, somehow making a road further down beyond. I don't want to interrupt anything for the kids in the conservation area, because that sounds wonderful, but if there were some way to have an access road away from where it's the busiest part, one of the busiest parts on New Portland Road, that would be the best thing for everybody, I think. And yeah, a subdivision, it is in a place where it's going to be emptying out into residential areas, which isn't the ideal for high density, but I realize that's kind of a moot point at this point. It's going to happen, but I just think this is important, that it needs to be thought out more carefully. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Drew Strange, living on 33 Long Meadow Drive. Today I'm wearing the hat with the Gorham Conservation Committee. I know my chair member sent the email out to you guys with a few questions that the group had, and I'm going to just reiterate some of those questions that I want to make sure are clear. I think I've got a lot of information already from this talk, but one of the points that we were asking was, will there be specific access times when the public won't be able to use White Birch Lane during construction to access the T-ball parks? I don't think that sounds like that's going to happen at all. The White Birch Lane, there's going to be like specific times or days when the public won't be able to access the T-ball.
Sir, you need to actually speak to the council. We can ask the questions after you're done.
Great.
If you'd like, yep.
Thank you so much. So that was one of the questions that was asked, as well as if there was going to be any help with dust control, if there was going to be help with also making a sidewalk available to access White Birch Lane over to New Portland Road, as well as seeing if there would be safe parking access for the ball fields, which sounds like it's on the discussion as well. Dust control. Yep, that's it. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you. Anyone else from the public? All right, I guess we'll resume our discussion, and maybe, I think some of those questions, there is a sidewalk going to New Portland Road that the Conservation Commission asked about.
Correct.
And then the parking lot will be separate, so,
Yeah, we don't see any restrictions to the access to the parking lot as part of this development.
okay. Any other comments, questions from the council?
The only other question they had was dust control, which is usually a construction mitigation process, but.
Yeah.
So, Madam Chair, I guess a follow-up on that, they're going to have to do construction and they're going to have to widen it, which is going to require probably a new culvert, right? So what happens to the access to Avesta and White Birch? And then they're going to have to do construction in the parking area or wherever the road would be. So there is going to be limitations for the residents in that area as well as residents, right?
Yeah, my assumption is it will be restricted to one lane of traffic, like you typically see with road construction. So it's not going to be limited to no access. It will be limited to signage in one way, probably.
So
if they had to do drainage and stuff.
So my question would be, I guess, I don't think currently we have requirements that have traffic control that includes police officers, off-duty police officers. How are we going to ensure that people that want to access public lands can still access those public lands, or the people that want to reach their residences still can reach their residences, even when construction isn't happening?
Thank you. We do have law enforcement standards that are mainly on our collector roads, but that being said, as conditions of construction, any project in town, if there's access on public ways, there's notes and standards that you have to maintain access, proper traffic control, following all the standard guidelines, and Public Works or the police department would enforce that. But
Is this a
typically
collector road?
I'm sorry?
Is this a collector road?
On major roads, law enforcement officers
Is this a
can be
major road?
required.
Yeah.
There would likely not be a law enforcement officer stationed.
That was kind of my point, right? So we don't really have a control mechanism to control the in and outs of the construction crews in that area, right? Is what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. We have our staff, Public Works Department, Code Enforcement Office, but typically it never comes to that. Usually when we get involved is to make sure there's safe access, complaint on dust, something like that. And the Public Works obviously would have the town engineer or an inspector there if there's construction on a public road anyway. Just checking things out and doing inspections from time to time. So we have a pretty substantial presence.
Yeah, and I believe in order to close a road to no trips, you need permission of the Public Works Director as well as fire and police to make sure that they understand that they couldn't access. So it's very, if they do need to close a road, it's very specific for a certain time and it's very detailed and everybody's kind of approved it. Fire, police, and Public Works, just so everyone's in the loop. But typically that's not the case. It's typically, like I said, one lane closed so they can keep traffic moving, and there's flaggers on this type of road. You typically see flaggers and that kind of thing.
Sure. So, Madam Chair, through you to the town. So we got some information from the school department. I don't think it was really addressed by the town here. They kind of put a big green bubble where, I guess, the stormwater management area the road would be, as well as just putting a pass-through through the parking lot. What do we do now based on what's on the screen for their proposal, I guess, that conflicts with their request?
Again, this is a, moving forward from here. So moving forward from here, if this project, meaning the road, moved forward, the road connection, staff, the planning board, the developer would work with the school department and say, okay, where can we in the future accommodate the road, accommodate future stormwater needs, and then the school department's road through the whole property. That's a future project that they have on deck.
So that conflicts, Madam Chair, with what I guess we're looking at as a single item, right? Where they're proposing a road and leaving the parking lot untouched, kind of. I I guess there's a lot up in the air, and I would want to table it until there's a more concrete solution and, I guess, plan to be brought forward. I'm in no rush. The townspeople are in no rush. This has been here forever. Roby bequeathed it to whoever has it now that's selling it with some conditions. Nobody's really in a rush, as far as I can tell.
Can you explain I know we're not talking about the project, but the contract zone does impact the road to me, right? So can you explain moving forward how in conjunction with this road, the contract zone is moving forward, I guess? What's the process on the contract zone?
So the process with the contract zone is the request from the developer to look at basically changing the growth permit allocation to address the design of that section, right? So that was what the request of the contract zone was. The council looked at, okay, if we grant that, what other additional conditions we're going to put on the development? I think at the time there was additional fees that were identified for originally the recreation, but I think it's moved to the schools. So there's like additional fees on the development. Now, that's what the planning board did their public hearing on, and it's coming back to the council at a future meeting to discuss. Now, if the council wants to add design of the road in the subdivision, all these other items, that's got to go back to the planning board for public hearing and review of all that other stuff. Really, this review of the road is really because the planning board asked as part of phase one, as the developer said, that this be done. The contract zone and the growth permits, the applicant is going to meet the current standards. So that's kind of a separate discussion, and you can add some conditions if you want to move forward with the design of that road. And then the contract zone is a separate item. If you're looking at the contract zone, it comes back, and then you want to look at more road design to kind of affect it, just be aware that it probably won't be phase one you'll be affecting, it will be future phases regarding design of the road and any other conditions you want to add to it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions, comments?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just checking. I heard the dust mitigation question, but I didn't hear the answer.
Usually whatever construction company you're using manages their dust basically at that point. So whether it's with calcium or water or whatever else they use to, that's.
So how that would be handled on the town side would be, there's a complaint of dust, either Public Works, town engineer, one of our municipal offices would go out and look and say, yes, it's under control, and the developer is following their plan to mitigate that, or no, it's not, it's particularly dry, they'd work with the developer to mitigate that.
Okay. Well, we do have rules in place for such thing. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to just, a couple of thoughts. You know, I think we've got a real tragedy of the commons here. You know, we all want to spread out and have some space. Gorham's development pattern has been really focused the last few decades on spreading out because, you know, automobile use makes it easier to go further away and the land's cheaper further out of town. But, you know, with our zoning and our land use codes being so restricted regarding density, building heights, building types, the types of uses we allow, we start running out of land very quickly. And there's not enough room for all the cars, all the people, and there's not even that many people. I mean, and with the low density development, the property taxes aren't generating enough revenue to cover the costs of servicing for the town. So, I mean, even though the design here isn't a particularly high density, small enough units that there's perhaps a chance that the town will come out a little bit better than we have in some of these other developments. But I question whether, you know, the idea of a longer road to go further away from the existing people, that might be a solution for today, but not for the long term. I think the solution is that we have to demand and require that the roads are safer, and we have to make it more viable for the residents to be able to walk or bike to get to where they need to go, or to use the public transportation, which is potential, you know, there's the potential to utilize the metro line with this development. we could require that the developers incentivize metro use. So that's something to think about. So I think this is some stuff that I don't have all the answers here right now, but those are just some thoughts I wanted to share.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just want to say props for the tragedy of the Commons. I mean, good reference.
Chair, do other councilors feel like they have enough information to make an informed vote tonight? Because a motion to table did come up from a councilor's discussion, and I want to just see what people are feeling.
Could we just clarify again what, I mean, if the step forward was to table it, what would the timeline look like for that? I mean, we would table it till a date certain, or?
Thank you. I think I would take one step back and what information do you need if you feel that you need to table it, and what information could be addressed would be step number one, and then step number two. I'll kick to Tom because I can't read his handwriting.
So really, I've identified two conditions. One is paving the ball field parking lot, and then the other one is buffer or fence between the road connection and the ball field parking lot. Those are the two conditions I heard as part of the road connection. Did I get those?
Well, and I think speed measures.
Yeah, I mean,
speed,
traffic
I know
calming.
that'll all be part of the process, but at the end of the
And we
day,
can't just,
I mean.
yeah, we can't just say that. We
Right.
have to make
No,
them
exactly.
do it.
So I mean,
We have to do
narrowing a
things
road
that slow the
obviously is
speed
the
down.
So,
fastest
I
way.
mean, I will say, I mean, that's been done at the planning board. The town engineers looked at it, public works directors, and I understand that people perceive speed, like, so I will tell you, stop signs are being proposed. They're gonna do a bump out for the trail connection. That's gonna be mid-block trail connection to kind of narrow that road. And then but that's all in the development, right? So when you get out, as Ms. Roby says, it's kind of crossing their parcel and then it's going into the town piece where there's a potential parking lot. So if you start doing bends in that, you're gonna lose parking lot availability, or you're gonna have to go back to Ms. Roby to negotiate the connection. So
But that's not on us.
it's not, but I'm just saying, we're gonna look at traffic calming. That's all being looked at as part of the development. The planning board, as Mr. Walsh said, has been very concerned and very vocal about identifying that as part of the development. So all that stuff is being looked at.
So devil's advocate, oh, sorry.
No, I just want to say, I've always been somebody that's like, hey, if you don't feel comfortable in this and you don't have enough information, it's time to kick it down the road until there is the right information and it does feel right. I'm going to say here, could I be more amenable to this? I think I could if I saw a better package. And we've been dealing with this in some manner for some time, and I've still yet to see any of the stuff that I proposed and the council approved the developer to do and the planning board to undertake. And so by saying we're narrowing the roads, that's one measure. It takes away some bike paths and some other small things, but it's a redesign of the project so that it's not a dogleg. And that's the part I'm getting hung up on is, sure, we're giving them a road, I guess, but then what are we getting down the road? We're not getting anything for the parcel, and we're not getting anything we've asked for, voted on, and approved from the developer. I find this to be a very odd and bullyish piece from the developer. You have a council that was amenable to do the project. We said, hey, here's the layout. Nothing. I mean, that's the tough part. I mean, could I change my mind on it? I certainly could if the stuff that we had asked for had been done. That's where I'm stuck.
And I'll make, I mean, even, I'm just, I'm not a road designer, but I mean, I'm just looking at the school's plan. I mean, you could still put in the stormwater and you could make the road, you could do a dog leg around the stormwater pond. I mean, like there's ways to do this stuff. So, I think I mean, I think that, similar to Councilor Gagnon, there's a lot of very serious concerns that have been raised. There's ways to address them, and we just have to ensure that they get addressed. So if tabling it now is a way to help make it clear that we need to see more, that could be a potentially reasonable option.
Councilor Pratt?
Sorry, devil's advocate here. So, we're talking about the road design, everything else, and all I need is a head nod from Public Works. Is the road designed a plowable design now? The one in front of us is plowable in the wintertime, it's not too narrow, it's not, okay, he's saying yes, so his head is shaking, yes, we can all agree to that, right? Not just me? Yes, please. So I guess I've plowed snow in the wintertime, and dog legs and hammerheads and all the fun terms that we throw out scare me as a plow guy, basically, only because the more twists and turns and nuances you put in a road make it impossible to remove snow, that's all. And we're gonna get snow eventually here, people, okay? This isn't the end of snow for us. So I'm okay with narrowing roads, I'm okay with everything else. When we start talking about speed bumps and turns and dog legs and twists, it makes it very difficult. And no more than I like the bump outs down by Gorham House of Pizza, only for that reason, because I feel like a plow is just gonna take that out one storm. But I guess I look to Public Works to see what they think.
Looking at this, I don't see there's gonna be any big problems for maintenance, snow-wise or any other. I think there's some rooms for some drainage improvements at the parking lot. I think those things we need to look at. And again, as soon as we get, or the developer gets approval or not approval, we can hit the high spots and get some fine points done on this. Right now, it's very preliminary. We've looked at it, and I don't see any big maintenance issues. We're gonna narrow up White Birch Lane. Right now, it's 27 feet of pavement there. It certainly doesn't need 27 feet of pavement, and it won't have 27 feet of pavement when this is all done. So I think there's going to be traffic calming. And until we work on the final design, we won't know what kind of traffic calming measures we need to put in to make this, exactly what everybody says. Let's not make it a drag strip. And I agree 100%, but there's methods to make that not a drag strip. I think we need the opportunity maybe to work on that.
What's the width of a ADA approved sidewalk now?
ADA is 5 feet.
5 feet.
From face of curb to rear of the sidewalk.
Thank you.
Terry, I have a question while you're up here. So White Birch Lane, if we do an extension, White Birch Lane is a public road right now. If we do the extension, it would continue until the end of the town property as a public way?
If you folks accepted it, yes.
Okay, and then it stops there?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Just another concept that's coming to my head from a recent committee meeting. Our town engineer mentioned sidewalks that are at least 8 feet wide are considered
multi-use paths.
Right, yeah. I mean, could that conceivably be something that we want to ask to do here? I mean, would that be a amenable compromise? That's just a suggestion. No.
Are you looking for me to comment on that? Because
Sure,
I would
yeah.
say that's a doable option. I would think that'd be something we think about,
Yeah.
especially at least from the parking area out to New Portland Road.
Yeah.
Because there's some other plans the town has on New Portland Road, but we're not going to talk about that tonight. But there's a lot of staff discussions going on with ideas that we can't move ahead until we know what's going to take place. If this isn't going to happen, we're certainly not going to spend a lot of time and effort designing something that's not going to ever happen.
Thank you. So just to circle back, we're discussing extending White Birch Lane for this connection. If anybody does feel like they don't have enough information, as Ephraim said, please let us know what information you need in order to vote. Otherwise, I have enough information tonight to vote, so I don't know if other counselors feel like they don't. So, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to back up too on the process. So as the council looks at this. So again, tonight you're voting to move this forward in a legal mechanism, whether you do that or not do that. But if you do that, move it forward, It then gets designed, then, all that input goes into it. It comes back to the council, you formally have a public hearing, and then you formally vote on it. This step is part of that legal mechanism, but it's also a point where you could stop and say, we don't want to make that investment. We don't want the developer to have to invest in designing it if we're not going to ultimately move forward with it. So that would be the process moving forward if it does move from this meeting. Thank you.
So we're not voting to extend it tonight. That'll be at the next meeting after the public hearing, correct?
Correct. You are initiating a process this evening. You do not have to accept it at the end of that process, but obviously there's a time commitment, financial commitment from a lot of parties moving forward if you do pull the trigger on it.
Okay. Tom, go ahead.
And then for staff, just to make sure it's clear that if the council is looking for a paved parking lot and they are looking for some buffering between the road and the parking lot to identify that in the motion as they move it forward, just so we're clear when we go to work with the developer to get the designs, then what we're actually getting designed in addition to the road and how that all works.
You want us to add those things into?
That would be my suggestion, just so I'm clear on.
And you're asking us to specify those things right now?
Yeah, so everyone's clear what the expectations coming back is.
Thank you. And not specifically in detail. I think traffic control, traffic calming, to the maximum extent possible, implement traffic control measures and traffic calming measures. But obviously the engineers figure all that stuff out.
I'd like to do a major little list there. I think the idea of the at least 8-foot sidewalks might be something worth looking at further.
Madam Chair, we can ask for a straw poll to see where everybody lies on it.
Well, to Tom's point, I think that we should probably make amendments to this to add those. So if somebody wants to make a motion to add traffic calming measures, all right, Councilor Sims, is there a second? Councilor Wilder Cross. All right, so for traffic calming measures, Tom, does that give you enough?
Yeah, I can list them off. Just
Madam Chair, point of order. We've already asked for all of these in the contract zone.
But this isn't the contract zone.
This is all part of the same project, Madam Chair.
But the
We've
contract
asked
zone,
for- we've asked for all that already.
could be approved or not approved at a later date, and we'd still want these things. So that's why they need to be here. So traffic calming measures, there's an amendment, so all those in favor? 6 yeas. All those opposed? All right, are there any other, the paving of the parking lot? and-
Paving of the ball field parking lot, I can list them off. Buffer or fence between the road and the ball field parking lot, and then looking at the ability to have an 8-foot sidewalk along White Birch Lane.
So I guess the question though is, okay, so I'm gonna say, yes, I wanna see the parking lot paved, but we need to find out if that's feasible or not to start. And that determines my vote tonight or not, basically. So I guess I feel like I'm putting the cart before the horse right now.
I guess.
Am I not? I mean, convince me I'm not. I guess I'm confused.
Whether it's feasible or not, so really you're going from, what I'm talking about is gravel to pavement. It's impervious to impervious. So to me, it's all feasible as being.
Okay. So to you, it's feasible?
To me, I mean, if it's not feasible, we'll bring it back to the council and say, we looked at it, and it's not feasible. But at least we are going to move in the direction that it is.
Right, right. But if it's not feasible, that changes my vote. So I'd have to reconsider my vote, I guess, is what I'm saying.
It is, that's fine.
Should we add it a condition that
Yeah.
the feasibility of the parking lot is a requirement? I mean, it's kind of.
Right, I mean, I just feel like we're going around in circles here, that's all. So I'll put paved parking lot as a condition,
And the buffer?
basically. And the buffer, can we put that as one, because
Yep.
it's all in
Yep.
one area? I mean, I'll do that as an amendment, and then I guess in the next meeting. If I don't agree, I'll reconsider my vote, so.
All right, is there a second for Counselor Pratt's amendment? Counselor Sims, all those in favor?
Sorry, hold on, Counselor
Oh,
Siegel is.
Point of inquiry here, just can you reconsider amendments?
Well, I'm saying
Reconsider his
on the
vote.
total
Yep.
vote, I can
Okay.
reconsider my
Reconsider his
total
vote,
vote
yep.
at the end.
Understood.
Yeah, not an amendment. Yeah.
All those in favor of the amendment for the parking lot and the buffer? 6 yeas. All those opposed? 1. Counselor Gannon. And is that
The
it?
8-foot sidewalk along White Birch Lane from the ball field parking lot to New Portland Road.
And that's just to look at it to see if it's feasible? Is that where?
Correct. If it is feasible, then we'll bring it forward, but if there's not enough right-of-way or something like that, that's,
Are you okay with that, Counselor Sims?
Sorry,
Okay.
point of clarity before
Yeah.
we, an 8-foot sidewalk allows for bikes, is that what we're saying? People, walkers and bikes at the same?
Correct.
Okay, all right, just so I'm aware of what that means.
So do you put a
Thank you.
bike lane in the, on the sidewalk?
No, because technically, if you're a cyclist, you're not allowed to use sidewalks
But if it's an 8-foot.
legally.
Why not just do a bike lane then?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair, you could look at the feasibility of either adding a 8-foot sidewalk or a bike lane. You could look at that. I mean,
I will say to the rest of the council, a protected bike lane is usually 3 feet for the bike lane, and then you need more for buffer. Making it just a 8-foot sidewalk, you have the curb as the buffer, so it actually makes it way safer for cyclists, and also, in the end, less total room you'd actually need.
So going in and out of a narrow road ball field with kids, that'd probably make more sense to have them elevate away from the traffic pattern is what you guys are saying. Okay.
There are lots of cities that have sidewalks that you're not supposed to walk in the bike lane. I've been in those cities.
Yeah, we could consider
it
that.
works.
We could look at that, yeah. We could look at that. That'd be cool. The first of its kind in Gorham.
Okay, so
We
you
like
made
San
an amendment
Francisco.
for sidewalks. to
An
look at the
amendment
si-
for a minimum 8-foot sidewalks.
Okay,
to
is there
be-
a second by
to be
Counselor Lavoy? All right, I'm not sure about looking at that. I kind of have a concern where we suddenly put in 8-foot sidewalks on White Birch Lane, and then everybody wants 8-foot sidewalks everywhere, so that might be an interesting discussion. All right, so all those in favor of adding that? 6 yeas, all those opposed? 1 Gagnon. All right, so as is everybody all set with how it's written? Lori, you've got everything?
Yep. It wasn't a bike lane, it was just the 8-foot sidewalk for the third one.
Right, yep, yep. All right, so this vote will either move this forward or not, so.
Move this forward to public hearing, correct?
Yes, move this
Okay.
forward to a public hearing in another meeting. And that's going to allow the developer and staff to spend time, money, and things like that on this. Anything else, Town Manager Tom? Okay.
Let's do it.
All right, all those in favor? 5 yeas, all those opposed? Union Phillips. Much, everybody. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Counselor Pratt.
Second.
Second by Counselor Sims. All those in favor? Thank you.